Welcome to the first Bolivar Central High School podcast. I am Ian Wellens. The admin have been holding on to a little bit of a secret here the last couple of weeks, and that's because for the 24-25 school year, the state of Tennessee has officially named Bolivar Central High School as a reward school. Now, that sounds cool, but what does that mean? Do we get a banner? Do we win a prize? To help break it down, I'm sitting with two people who steer the ship, our principal, Brittany Avent, and our instructional coach, Kelsey Nave. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. This question to Miss Avent. Let's start with the basics. We hear reward school and we think, okay, we're getting a pizza party, right? But in the eyes of the state of Tennessee, what did we do to achieve this title?
So it was really exciting after the state board level meeting today, and I opened my email to have a letter there from the Commissioner of Education telling us that we're a reward school. And I'm actually going to tell you what's in this letter. And it says reward schools are those with an overall federal accountability score greater than or equal to 3.1. And so we're going to talk about that and kind of break it down a little bit. But it's a minimum score. Basically, you can become a reward school one or two ways: on overall school score of having a 3.1 or higher, and or accountability. So in our instance, we did two things. We scored the minimum score of a 3.1. Our overall score was actually a 3.3. So we were above the minimum, and we actually showed tremendous growth in an academic year.
All right. So when we talk about growth, those of us that are teachers or maybe that have students in the school system, we use the word growth all the time. We talk about that. What does that term mean?
So there are two terms that are tossed around a whole lot: achievement and growth. So achievement is the actual score that the student scored on the test. Growth determines how much your child grew in an academic year, not necessarily the score that they got on the test.
Okay. All right. Miss Nave, I know the state looks at a lot of numbers, not just test scores. There's a lot of things that go into this. What were some of the big areas where our school really improved last year that were not tied directly to test scores?
Great question. So with the state and federal accountability, obviously achievement and growth are your biggest two buckets in there that count, but it's not all that matters. And so for us, some of our biggest growth happened with chronic absenteeism. The state also looks at ELPA, so students that are English language learners, graduation rate, and ready graduate. So our chronic absenteeism from the previous year to last year improved from a 0 to a 4, which is an astronomical amount of growth made in one school year.
Now, is that 0 obviously being the lowest is for the highest we could
Yes.
get on that?
Yes.
So it's the same score as what we would need to qualify as a reward school.
Yes. So on a 0 to 4 scale. So literally from the bottom to the top. Graduation rate is the only indicator that we lost a little ground on, but federal graduation rate and state graduation rate are two different things. And so to comply, the state has to look at federal graduation rate for this one. But ready graduate is another indicator that grew a lot from the previous year to this year.
Okay, so I know we've recognized our ready graduates. We put stuff out on social media, but for those listening that may not be familiar, what is a ready graduate, or what does it take to qualify to be a ready graduate?
So there's actually several different ways that a student can be deemed as a ready graduate. And regardless of how they are a ready graduate, it's just telling the state, the school, that they are ready for the post-secondary, regardless of the pathway that they take. So they can have 4 early post-secondary opportunities, or EPSOs. So that could be a dual enrollment. Our middle college kids are obviously gonna have our dual enrollment classes. So they can have 4 dual enrollment classes. They can have 2 dual enrollment classes and an industry credential through one of our CTE courses. They can do 2 early post-secondary opportunities, or EPSOs, and get a 31 plus on the ASVAB, or they can have a 21 plus on the ACT. So there's 4 different ways, whether it's through a CTE course, college classes, or just testing that's how you can be deemed a ready graduate. And regardless, that means you're ready for the post-secondary.
All right, great. So Miss Nave, you work with teachers every day as in your role as an instructional coach. Our scores don't happen by accident. This is not just a random thing. What changed in the classrooms, in teacher meetings last year that helped us get to where we are now?
We had tremendous teacher buy-in to what we were doing, which is something that being in PLCs from the start of the year to the end of the year, teachers just, they wanted to be coached. They wanted to learn. They were hungry to do the things that we needed to do to get that student growth. And so being a part of that, like, it was very powerful being able to coach teachers that were very willing to do the hard things that we were asking them to do. We meet every week with EOC teachers or end of course teachers. So they take a lot of time out of their planning to meet with me, Miss Avent, to meet in our PLCs, to go over instructional practices, to go over their data, to talk about how that's informing what's happening daily in their instruction. So the work that we saw was very difficult work. But again, you're talking about a hungry group of teachers that were so willing to go above and beyond.
All right, so you use the term PLC, and again, those of us in education know what a PLC is. I think anybody listening probably figured out it was a meeting, but what is a PLC?
So PLC is professional learning community, but it's different for different schools. They do things a little bit. Yeah, everybody can do kind of things on their own. But for us, we look at our tested subjects, our ESC classes. We put into PLCs together based on planning. So all of our English teachers have common planning. Our math teachers have common planning, and then we sprinkle in our biology and U.S. history. They pull into PLCs with us, and then we do our non-tested subjects go into PLCs again based on planning periods. And so when we're in our PLCs for EOC classes, what we do is a little bit different than what we do with our non-EOC teachers, obviously, because we have more things with our EOC teachers. We have more data that we can look at. We have more standards, and with our curriculum that we have, there's just different things that we do there. But either way, it's a PLC. It's a learning community. We're learning things together.
Great, great. Miss Avent, so Miss Nave said that the teachers have worked extremely hard, but to become a reward school, it's got to take student buy-in as well. You come in, this is your second full year here. What has been the hardest part about changing the culture here to get students to care about this data? Because you talk to a kid, they generally don't care about test scores. That's not what's on the forefront of their mind. So what have you done to help change the culture? What's been the hardest part about that?
I think a lot of it is starting out with conversations with teachers around data and getting them to understand. I think the hardest part is just getting the information out there. It starts with teachers and them understanding what data is, how do we use data, why does it matter, and how does it translate on a student level. So something that unexpectedly happened, our first year, it was focused heavily on teachers. And then something unexpected happened is that teachers took that information and they naturally delivered it at the student level. So in their classrooms, they were sharing student data with kids saying, hey, this is where you are, this is where you need to be. And students started taking that ownership in their own data. For instance, Miss Breeden started something. What does she call them, Nate? What points? What kind of points?
Her star
student?
Yeah, I think her star student, something along that line.
Right. So every student has a projected score that they're supposed to get. And if they meet that or they score above it, she gives them additional points. So they have something to work towards.
Their growth points.
Growth points. That's exactly what they're called. So growth points. And she will award them growth points to add on to a grade that maybe they didn't do as well on. And so when every test came out, students started realizing that they got these extra points, then it kind of became an expectations in their class. And so when this year when we came back and started talking about data at the beginning of the year, looking at where students are, where we need them to be, other teachers started asking, "Hey, Miss Breeden, what are you doing?" And it just caught like wildfire. So a lot of it is accountability for students, taking their own accountability and seeing how that affects them in school.
Okay.
I also think I want to speak to that just a second. I also think that something that Miss Avent doesn't give herself enough credit for with the culture work is making sure that students know that they're safe, that they're seen, that they're heard, that they're valued, because that's how you're going to get buy-in with kids. Is they have to know that it's a place that they can make mistakes, or they can do all the things, that they've got admin that are on their side, that teachers that are on their side. It's not easy to do culture work, but all of that, I think, played a huge part in this as well, because you've got teacher and student buy-in because they know that it's a place that they want to be genuinely. So that was just a heart of work that was done than, PLC work and things like that. So I do want to speak to that, because she's not going to, so I will.
Well, and you can, because you didn't have to buy in, Miss Nave. You two have worked together in the previous district, or two. Did y'all work together? Two districts. So y'all have been together for a while. So there was automatically buy-in here. So you come in, Miss Nave, and y'all just hit the ground running, right? And that's kind of how we get to this point, because there was no having to explain what was going on. It was just, here we are, let's get started, let's get into it.
And part of the buy-in is getting teachers to feel comfortable with Miss Nave.
Yeah.
That's something, we look back on, and anytime you bring in somebody new, who I sing her praises all the time, but when you're introducing them to faculty, it takes time to build trust. And it felt like in no time that trust was built, and we were rocking and rolling.
All right. Miss Nave, anyone who knows you love a spreadsheet. It's one of your favorite things. And Miss Avon, you're not far behind. But they're great. But at the end of the day, we're dealing with people. And is there any point, any specific moment last year, maybe with students, maybe with teachers, anything you saw where either one of you looked around and you thought, hey, this is happening. All this we've been working towards, the things we've been building to, it's happening. It's taking place. Is there any story you've got like that? Anything you can share where you saw this coming into play?
There's two that I can really think about, that I just really knew that it's like, okay, we really got this. Um, I want to speak to our geometry teachers, Miss Braden, Coach Stack. In PLCs, the work we did wasn't always easy work. We talked about doing things that were different or difficult. But those two, no matter what, we're going to go back to their classrooms and implement literally anything I asked them to implement. Now, Stack may gripe at me. He'd go fuss at me for sure. But both of them would go back, try everything we did, come back to PLCs and talk about how successful it went. And that created such a high level of teacher buy-in from everybody else, because you've got these two veteran teachers. They're willing to try it. They're seeing the successes. Stack is an admin and a teacher, so he has that double side, and he's able to really, really, really help everybody else understand like how important it is to do these things that we're talking about in PLCs. So once I saw that, them coming back to PLCs and having those success stories, I was like, oh man, we've got some teachers that are really willing to do what we're asking them to do. They weren't going to like dig their heels in. They weren't going to protest. Like, they were willing to do the hard work. And I think the other place I really saw was, we were in a district meeting and we were looking at our heat map from the year before, and chronic absenteeism was something that Miss Avon identified as like, this is the place, because we were a zero, that we really need to do some work. And with chronic absenteeism and truancy, like, that is a place where she set up a team with an admin. We have a group of people that make the calls and track the data, and her being over that, that's a reason we went from a 0 to a 4. is that she looked at it, she knew that that was a place that we needed to improve, and she put all of the steps in place to make that happen. It doesn't have to be that way. Not everybody can look at that and understand that and put the things in place that need to be happening, but she did. And that's the main reason, that follow through with tracking student data in that way.
All right. Miss Abent?
I think the first thing was after hearing May speak about trying some new things in classrooms. And one of the things that we wanted them to do were small groups. And it's where you pull students in small groups and you work with them on a certain skill that they're lacking. Happens a lot in elementary school, happens a lot in middle school, but when you get to a high school level, it just kind of falls off. So we were coming back and identifying the students who needed a little additional help. And that doesn't happen without the data tracking. So I wasn't in this particular PLC, but I so clearly remember being in the hallway and Mr. Vales comes up and he's talking, and then Mr. Donnie Sipes, who taught U.S. history. So it's expanded even outside of math. And just for them to start just watching them bounce ideas off of each other and talking about data and owning data and how they're using it in their classrooms with small groups, it was just such a proud moment. It's like one of those moments that it's like, okay, we're not saying this because we're around this round table in a professional meeting. Like, we're saying this in the hallway because we care about it and we see how it's affecting kids. I think the second piece of it is I would say chronic absenteeism, because if kids aren't here, they don't learn. So that was a big push. But the moment that I saw it working and students really, really caring about, we implemented some new things this year, such as structured day. And the moment I was standing in the hallway and I saw students running down the hallway to try to get to class so they're not late for it, I was like, okay, we're making a difference, you know? I'm not telling them to get to class. I just give them a time update. You know, I watch my watch. And I say, okay, guys, if you're in the hallway, you have 15 seconds. And the amount of kids that would just start flying down the hallway, it's good to see. They want to be on time and they're taking accountability into their own hands.
Right. And if they're not on time, if they're missing class, obviously they're not getting the learning they need. So it's all coming together. Okay, so we get the recognition, we get a banner, whatever is going to happen. We got our title. How do we maintain this momentum? Because when you jump like you do, then the next year you got to make bigger gains if you want to maintain, and it's extremely hard. So what's our focus for this school year? What are we doing to try to retain the title of reward school?
We have been asking ourselves this a lot, and it comes down to complacency is our enemy, 100%. If we're okay with where we are, we're never going to move forward. And that's going to be the message that shared with staff throughout the whole entire year. If we want to keep the momentum going, we have got to actively fight against complacency. And that means that we're here every day for the kids, as well as the kids being here every day. And just making sure that our expectations are high for students, that we're holding them accountable, and for me as a principal, it's fair, firm, and consistency, and making sure that across the board, people are getting what they need. And sometimes that task is not an easy thing to do. And so I'm not necessarily everybody gets the same. I'm all about everybody gets what they need. And sometimes that looks different from child to child or adult to adult. And I think how you fight against that is it starts with the relationships in the building and people knowing that they're more than just a number. And we see them beyond the label of a student or as a teacher. It comes down to real human connection. And it's really special for me to come back to Bolivar because I grew up here. And I will tell you, I never realized how special of a place it was until I came back. So it's just really, really awesome to see. But a short answer to a long-winded response, just don't be okay with where you are ever. Always keep striving to make improvements and look for blind spots. So our next step right now is really diving deep into the student experience at school.
Okay. Miss Nave, for the students listening right now or any parents that might be listening, they want to help keep the momentum going. What should they be focused on? If I'm a student, what do I focus on? If I'm a parent, what am I focused on for my student?
I think at the end of the day, data is great. Data points are great to have, but our students are not defined by a data point, right? So I think making sure that we continue doing that culture work, that positive work with kids. When you keep kids at the center of what you're doing, you're making the right decisions, right? When you're keeping them in mind. So, for parents, like we want open communication, like we want to make sure that they're a part of things that we're doing, that they're involved in things that we're doing at school. Come up here for events that we have, help us plan events. Like we want that to be open. We want it to be open with parents and we want it to be open with the community. For kids, we want you to feel safe and seen and valued, and we want you to find joy out of your experience here. So keep those lines of communication with your people, your teachers, your admin open. Make sure that if something's not right, like we don't know what we don't know. So I think continuing to build relationships, continuing to have those positive relationships is just going to make sure that we are continuing the work that we're doing. All of these things we're going to continue to work on. But if we don't have kids that want to be here and parents that want to send their kids here, all of it's for nothing. So I think maintaining those positive relationships, that's where we really, really want to keep that going with our kids in our community and our families.
Very well said. Very well said.
All right. Well, there you have it, everybody. Bolivar Central High School is a reward school because of the data, but really because of the grind that the teachers are putting in, the admin, and of course the students. We'll never forget the students because that's why we're here. They're the ones that really, at the end of the day, they're taking the test. They're the ones that we are here for, and we're here to serve them. Miss Avent, Miss Nave, thank y'all for giving us a little insight into what the reward school meant and how we got to this point. I hope y'all had fun on this first podcast here.
It was fun. Hey, can I put a disclaimer out there?
Absolutely.
Reward status does not mean that we're perfect.
Absolutely.
But we are trying and we are making great strides in moving forward. And we're just so happy for our community, for our parents, for our students, for our teachers to all be a part of this wonderful ride.
All right. Well, for Bolivar Central High School Media, I'm Ian Wellens. And as always, go Tigers.